Hey everybody, it's Christina of CraftyPaws. I'm here to share a kind of inside out card that I made as my final guest design team project for Maymay Made It. I used a really versatile stamp from Dough Crafts, which is this wood board or wooden board background. And I also used a Doris die set that's love themed to create this little card. And I'm going to share with you guys the whole process, start to finish. First off, I used a CC Designs little stamp that is named Birthday Puppy, and I stamped it out on some cardstock that I printed with my computer, a sentiment that says, whoever said diamonds are a girl's best friend never had a dog. And I stamped that out first so that I could figure out the positioning of the die cut window that I'm planning on making. And I next stamped out that Dough Crafts wooden boards background stamp using some Simon Says Stamp Rose Apple Premium Ink die. And now I'm just cutting down that cardstock that has that background, wood grain background, so that it is slightly larger than an A2 size card. I wanted it to be a little bit taller so that I'd have room inside for the sentiment and the little girl and the die cut little heart window that I'm planning. So I'm positioning the scalloped heart frame die excuse me, over the image, and I'm holding the die there and moving off that inside liner piece so that I know where I want to position that little window. And what I'm doing now is I'm going to use that die not to die cut out that window at this point. I want to use my Big Shot to emboss or put that print into that card front. And I'm using that silicone kind of squishy mat and layering that into my sandwich. Now I'm going to be able to see that impression of that framed scalloped heart frame. And I'm gonna use an X-Acto blade just to cut out the inside window. I wanted to do that because I wanted to keep the scalloped frame part of the heart still part of the card front. So I'm just taking my time using an X-Acto blade and cutting out that inside heart. And I'm going to frame that window with more die cuts of that scalloped heart frame. First, I'm going to, though, score and fold that card front so that now you can see how kind of the structure of the card. And then I'm going to just make sure that everything fits properly the way I had planned. I want the little girl and her puppy all cuddling in the window. And I'm going to use my Big Shot again, but this time I'm going to use my magnetic plate and the normal sandwich. I always use a metal shim at the base because my plates, my cutting plates, are so warped, and that metal shim really helps make all the die cuts nice and clean. Now I am die cutting out that scalloped frame heart, and I'm going to cut that out actually 3 times. And I'm doing that so that I can stack and layer each of those frames to give a little bit of dimension around that window on the front of the card. I'm also using the XOXO from this same Doris Embossing Essentials set. It's called Love Theme. And I'm going to die cut all those letters out 3 times as well and stack them. And I'm using art glitter glue with the fine tip nozzle to stack those letters and glue them together. It kind of makes your own kind of DIY thickers, and I love being able to determine exactly how thick I want everything. And with that fine tip nozzle, it's really easy to glue little pieces like this together. Now I'm going to use that art glitter glue to glue that frame around and place that onto that heart window that I hand cut out with that blade. I'm putting it into position, and I love that about wet glue like this because there's a little bit of time to, position it exactly where you want it. You have some give and it will move a little bit for you until it fully sets, and then it's permanent. and I'm layering on the third scalloped heart frame. And now I'm gonna figure out how I want to position this XOXO. And I decide I'm just gonna follow the lines of the wooden board background. So that's another great thing about this background stamp. You can really quickly not have to use a ruler or anything like that. You know that whatever you position can be positioned perfectly straight just following the wood grain boards. Now I'm finished gluing all those XOXOs together, and I decide I want the card to be a little bit softer. So I'm using a We Are Memory Keepers Crocodile Corner Chomper. I'm using the 3/8 inch side, and I'm just rounding the right side of the card. And I'm doing the same for the inside liner piece. And I've decided, just to give it a more finished look, I'm going to ink the edges with that same Simon Says stamp Rose Apple ink. I'm just using a blending tool and a blending sponge, and I think it gives a nice finished look to both the card front and the inside card liner as well. Because the card base is kind of a cream color and the cardstock that I printed out the sentiment and stamped the little girl on is white, I wanted that line of demarcation. Now I'm going to just show you really quickly some Copic coloring. This is relatively easy. I'm not going to be able to actually show you all of it. I realized after I videotaped the whole thing that, in fact, my hand was in the focus frame for part of this. So I'm only going to show you the parts that aren't super blurred out and focused on my hand or the marker. I decided I'm going to keep the coloring really simple and just keep it basically a few colors. I use some blue greens, and I love the combo of blue greens and white with red. It's kind of a holiday-ish looking color combination, but I like it for any occasion actually. And this kind of blue-green and red color combo goes really nicely together. And I used it for the little tassels on the pillow that the little girl is sitting on, as well as on the puppy's scarf. And now I'm just blending. If you're interested in the particular Copic colors that I use, please check out my blog post, which I will link to in the description box below. But it's basically really simple Copic coloring. I just use two blue-green colors and blend together. And even though there aren't lines that indicate kind of the weight of her and where the fabric would be pulled, I kind of imagined where they would be pulled and created shadow lines or tension lines there. And I decided for the tassels on the pillow, I was going to alternate the color between the blue, green, and the red. I also decided her outfit would be red, just to keep it all simple. And so I'm coloring up her bow there. Both of their tongues are also in the red colors. I used the lighter for the tongue, R24 and R27. And then for the blue greens, I used BG11 and BG13. For the darkest part of the red section, I also used an R29. So in her clothes and in the little dog's scarf and in the tassel area of the pillow, I do go all the way to that R29 to get a deep dark contrast. And I blend it out with the R27 and then leave the R24 for the lightest part of that red. Now I'm going to do a little skin coloring. I put a base coat of E50, which is just a pale kind of eggshell color, and I make sure I hit all of her skin, including her knees and her little arm holding the puppy. And I go to the next darkest shade, which is an E51. This isn't super complicated skin coloring. I just look for where the cast shadows from her hair would be, where it's kind of tucked behind where her ear meets her hair, around where her bridge of her nose would be. I create shadows behind that. I also put shadows on the lower parts of her legs where they meet her socks. It looks kind of freaky right now because I haven't blended it all together, but you know, once you blend with the lighter tones, it really comes together. I use the E50 again to kind of blend it out, and I'm going to add the darkest shadows with an E21, which I think is going to come up soon. The cheeks are R20, and I reestablished those because they seem to have gotten paler. And there's no great science to this. You know, it's just a matter of laying in some color, blending a little bit, and then going back and reestablishing those shadows. Right now, you see I'm using the E21, which is my darkest skin tone that I'm using. Now for the hair, I decided I wanted to give her black hair like I have, even though my hair is long and straight. And the way I normally do black hair is I put in an undercoat of blue. So I'm using a B01, and the highlighted areas will have that cast blue tint to it, which I think a lot of shiny black hair has. Then I use some cool grays. I think I'm using a C5 and C7 and a C9. And unfortunately, as you can see, my hand was getting in the way here. I kept this part in just because I wanted to share with you guys the layering of the hair and the flicking. And each time I'm putting in a layer of color, I'm going a little bit darker. So I started with the blue, then I went to the C5, now I'm laying in the C7, and I'm just trying to think of where the darkest shadows would be, and I'm flicking from there. And you can see I turn the image around as I'm doing it so that I can get the flicking motions to follow the curves of her hair and the shape of her head. Then lastly, I'm gonna go in with the darkest color. This is the C9, I believe. And as you can see, I've got the focal point of the camera, unfortunately, on my hand. So I skip over a lot of the remainder of the coloring of the little puppy. But like I said, all the colors are going to be listed on my blog post. So you can check that out. And it's basically, you know, the same kind of Copic coloring, flicking for hair and fur, and smoothie kind of blended colors for fabrics, like her hair and her clothes, her dress. And that's about it. I think this is a really cute card, simple design, but it's kind of unusual with that little peekaboo window in the front. And I thought it would be fun to share with you guys how you can use dies to do embossing as well as die cutting. And this is just the last little bit, adhering the inside liner piece to the card. And there's the finished card. I hope you enjoyed this process video. If you enjoyed this, please give it a thumbs up. Thanks so much for watching.